So how many people here, I'm going to ask you to raise your hands again, actually know what Formula E is, have heard of it before? Raise your hand.
Great, more and more every year.
How many have heard of Formula One before? Okay, so this vaguely car-friendly here. Sylvain, could you please explain to everyone what Formula E is and perhaps what's different about it than Formula One?
Sure. First, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I just came back from Brooklyn, where we had a race there at the end of the season, which was really exciting. So Formula E basically is the leading racing championship. We race around the globe, and we only race electric cars. So they look like kind of traditional motorsport cars, but they are all electric. The idea behind it, and the main reason why we do this and why I was involved in co-creating a team, was that we have a very strong purpose. And the mission behind Formula E is to do two things. First, to really accelerate the development and the R&D behind electric cars, to really make the range better, the power better, the efficiency better, so that as soon as possible, you guys all want to drive an electric car. You're not forced to by incentives or whatever. You really aspire to drive these cars. So it's very much a technology championship. And the second pillar, it's about marketing and communication. There's no point developing all this amazing tech if no one knows about it. And actually, motorsports in its 50 years history has been incredibly powerful at being a platform to showcase technologies. So we are basically using this new platform to reach as many people as possible. More than 400 million people watch this championship every year. And the idea is to make them think that electric cars are really cool.
They are very cool. If you've ever caught a Formula One race, you know, part of the attraction is that kind of guttural roar of an engine. But at Formula E, the only thing I can think of, the whine of the electric motors, is that they sound like Roombas on steroids. You know, they're absolutely crazy. But what's interesting about it is that you can race in Brooklyn, because you couldn't put a Formula One race in Brooklyn, right? That everybody would complain.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that we do two things. We do a lot of things that make my life very difficult, but it's for the better good of the cause. First, it's a one-day event. So we do all free practice, qualifying, and racing in one day, which means you can bring your family, you can bring guests, you can do and see all of it really in one day. We're also very accessible. You can literally walk down the pit lane, you can see the cars, the drivers, so we try to make it very close. But the other aspect, of course, is that because the cars are electric, we can race in incredible places where we could never race otherwise. So not so much because of the noise, but because of the lack of pollution. So we only race in city centers around the center of Paris, Hong Kong, New York, Rome, you name it. Next year we go to Seoul, we come back to London. So that's incredible because it allows us to really showcase the sport in the best possible way. And instead of asking people to come to where we are, we go where people live.
Yeah, very cool. And you've won the race. You won on Sunday. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I think we have a picture somewhere, I think.
Yes, do we have a picture?
Of my team in
Brooklyn. I believe there was a race day selfie. And who are those three?
So Robin Flines in the middle is one of my drivers. He won the race. It was pretty spectacular, tens of thousands of people there, which explains my broken voice a little bit. But yeah, it was fantastic, and you know, another very successful year for Formula E. So Formula E hasn't been around that long, right? It was founded in 2011 officially, and your first race was in 2014, and that's why there's only been so many seasons. You know, I remember when it was started, the critics said it wouldn't last a year. You know, well, who would want to do this? And here you are. So you tell me, what has made it last? Because it was doomed to death from the start. Yeah, it's a bit picking up on what the other people were saying on the panel earlier. You know, it's about, some people said that, some other people like me were absolutely 100% convinced this would be a runaway success because it's all about surfing the perfect wave, right? And we can have different views on where mobility is heading and so on, but for sure it's going to be all electric, and for sure it's going to become autonomous, and all these things are going to happen because they make sense. So motorsport as an entertainment platform, but also as an R&D test bed for these technologies, has to go that way. It makes sense. So based on these fundamentals, it was very obvious to me it would work. When and how big it would grow, no one really knew, right? And we are pretty happy with where we are now. But yeah, I think it's all about being based on really strong fundamentals. And again, back to the sense of purpose, you know? I'm leading a team that is not backed by a car manufacturer. We use that platform to talk about the much better planet we can do by simply linking electric mobility to renewable energy, and how we can shift transportation, the whole of transportation, to electric, which would save about 30% of all carbon emissions in the world. That's something that's worth waking up in the morning to do, right? So.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of that technology, right? There are actually quite rigid restrictions on what you're allowed to change and not change on a vehicle. So tell us what those are and kind of how you're pushing forward in the areas where you're allowed to make changes.
Sure. So like any sport or any motorsport in particular, you have to make it fair, you have to have regulations. Otherwise, it would be the Wild West. And we've been, I think, very clever, especially with the FIA, the governing body, to decide that, okay, instead we're going to do things a bit differently than other motorsport series. And we're going to focus all our attention, resources, and money into developing what really matters. So when you look at all the cars in the paddock, they all look the same. So you could think, well, they're all the same, it's not so interesting. But actually, under the bonnet, under the rear of the car, this is where it all differs. So basically, all the cars look the same, the chassis is the same, the bodywork is the same, because there's no point spending money on aerodynamics these days. You know, if you want to make a race car go faster, you create more downforce. But it's the exact opposite that you're trying to do on a road car, so it's a bit pointless. So we spend all our focus on developing the powertrain, which is what makes the car move. So taking the energy from the battery through an inverter, a motor, a gearbox, a differential, and the idea is to create lightweight technologies and super high efficiency technologies. Formula E is all about developing a really efficient powertrain, and the reason why it's so interesting for everyone, including all the car manufacturers in the series, is that you can take these exact technologies and literally trickle down to road cars in a matter of 6 months or a year, because unlike petrol road cars, if we can find 2 or 3% more efficiency in our powertrain, you translate that into a road car, and that means 3% more range for the same price. So this is why it's so exciting and growing so fast. And yeah, every year the progress. What's also interesting is that even though electric cars have been around for more than 120 years, you know, you guys found the oil in Texas, and that kind of killed electric cars for about 80 years. And now we are developing the technology again, and it's accelerating really fast. So it's quite cool to be part of something where every year we make big jumps, you know, and big steps in development.
Yeah, accelerating very fast. Nice pun. Tell me a little bit about the data collection, because that's so fascinating to me. I once heard a presentation by McLaren years and years ago about all the data that they were getting from racing their conventional cars. And I was blown away. The real-time data collection, and this was a long time ago before we have a lot of the technologies that we do have today. Tell me what you're collecting, how often you're collecting it. You know, are you collecting it during the race? How do you make adjustments over the course of the season, weekend to weekend? How does that all work?
Sure. So to go back in history a little bit, you know, for sure, motorsport means data, right? Without to say something that's obvious, but if we don't get the data, if we had an IT issue, the car cannot even leave the garage. It's not a nice to have for us. It's like it's the basic to everything. But in Formula E, because these cars are electric, and all the efficiency gains I talked about earlier are not just the hardware, they're also based on software. We can use the exact same hardware for the whole year, and we will find significant improvements throughout the year just on software, just based on the way that we use the current from the battery all the way to the wheel, depending on the track conditions, on many aspects. So based on that fact, you know, it's interesting because there's going to be 12 teams in Formula E, all from different backgrounds, but pretty much all of them have been traditional motorsport teams coming from other championships. When I co-founded a team that was brand new and built from scratch from Formula E. And believe it or not, my thinking was, okay, let's start from the end. I want to win races and championships, so what is it going to be the main performance differentiator? And actually, that was software and data. You think you need fast drivers and a fast car, and that's enough, but it really isn't. Because you need to first optimize all the electricity flow in the car, but also you have to make the right decisions during the race, and Formula E is extremely strategic, so you need to be very strong on that. So actually, I built a software company. And it's really true. You look at all of my engineers in my team, more than half of my engineers in a race team are software engineers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which doesn't exist in any other race series. And it's paying off because we are being very successful. So basically, data is everything. We get a mix of data live from the cars when they're on track, and another big bunch of data when the cars come back in the garage. And I think what's exciting in motorsport and how that can be used as a case study, for some of you guys, it's super important to analyze all the data, get all the insights, but also do it really fast. And for us, it's not just the car speed that matters. It's the fact that because we are running an event over one day, my engineers only have a few minutes between sessions to analyze the data, make decisions, make tweaks on the car to go faster. So for us, we are developing software, an algorithm and AI, and I'm here today with a Genpact who are helping us do that, to develop this algorithm that basically means as soon as the data comes in, we get all these insights and then make the right decisions. So it's not just about the volume of data, it's to analyze it really, really fast. And I think in the future, it's going to become more and more relevant, right? Because everyone's going to be analyzing their data, so it's whomever can do it the faster, right?
Yeah. Let's go to the audience for questions, see if we got any fans out there, could you raise your hand, please, if you've got a question for Sylvain? Well, I've got one, Sylvain. You mentioned earlier about how the effect of motorsports on the consumer, side of things, kind of a trickle-down effect, I suppose you could say.
Yep.
So how is Formula E doing that? I've noticed there's a big omission in Formula E, Tesla. So how is this working its way into the mainstream, all the innovations that you're going through every minute of every race?
There are so many examples, but I think Tesla is an interesting example, right? Because they are, compared to other manufacturers, they have such a huge task at hand, and they've done the incredible thing of creating the momentum. Mm-hmm. They forced all the other car manufacturers to say, look, there is a market, and we can make amazing electric cars. So the main trickle down is that at the end of the day, Tesla and Elon says it himself, he cannot do it all alone. He needs all the other manufacturers to also develop amazing electric cars. So the way we do it is that we develop, as I said, better technologies, better motors, inverters, hardware, and software, and trickle down to road cars. So I'll give you a concrete example. All the electric cars on the road at the moment are running at 300 to 400 volts, which is good. Our race cars now run at 900 volts, which sounds very dangerous, and it is if you don't do it properly.
Extremely.
But we have proven now, by 2 years of racing at that level, and you've seen a fair amount of accidents in our races, that we can make this technology very safe at 900 volts. And now the next generation of electric cars coming, now from Porsche, Audi, and many guys coming, will be running at 800, 900 volts as well. And the main benefits are huge, because first you can charge twice as fast, and also you create far less heat, which also means better efficiency. Mm-hmm. So these are the kind of no-brainer technologies that create huge steps in improvement and will result in much better cars for you guys to drive.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this all sounds extraordinarily dangerous anyway, because you've got these enormous batteries just whizzing around a track. There's an inherent danger in this beyond the just, auto accident. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, that's what Formula E was there to test and prove, right? And in 5 years of racing, I cannot even tell you, but we are now at the hundreds of very significant accidents on track, right? And not a single time we've had any electrical fault in any of our cars. Mm-hmm. So you'd think it's dangerous, but actually compared to petrol engines, we're actually much safer. But we know it now, we didn't know it 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the reasons we've done it that way. And also a lot of motorsport technologies, you learn it and then you can apply to road cars, It was the same, it's been the case for the last 50 years, and hopefully it will carry on.
Right. We've got one question way in the back here. Yes, very quickly, please.
I'm Tony Chan, the president of KAUST in Saudi Arabia. Formula E is run in Saudi Arabia, if I understand. So our university is a technology partner with McLaren, the F1. So we do, in fact, aerodynamics and fuel, research. So I'm surprised that aerodynamics does not matter. But anyway, my point is this: how does the Formula One compare with Formula E? Which one runs better? Have you thought about in the future a sort of mixed race?
A mixed race?
Combining the two.
Are they running the same speed, Sylvain?
Yeah, close. I hope we can get there. We can get there soon. So the main difference is clear, right? And back to your point around aerodynamics. Of course, aerodynamics can make the cars go much faster. But if it's the same for everyone, then it's a level playing field. So instead of spending millions on creating more downforce, we can spend the same money improving the powertrain, which is more relevant to road cars. In terms of Formula One performance, their cars are still a little bit faster, but ours can now do 0 to 60 in 2.6, 2.8 seconds, which is very close. And then it's all about the energy density in the batteries, right? So in 4 years, in the same volume and weight of the battery, we've doubled the amount of energy in that battery. So that shows you the trend, right? Another few years, and then it will become a no-brainer to drive an electric car. So it will see, and we get a lot of trickle down of technology from Formula One, right? So McLaren as a company, they are involved. They are helping develop the battery that we are running in our car. So all these technology companies are kind of jumping on a bandwagon and realizing that the biggest impact they can make on innovation is around electric cars. So everyone is coming into it.
The future of auto racing is running all electric races in Saudi Arabia, apparently.
And other places.
Sylvain, thank you so much. Please,
Pleasure.
round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.